Hello and welcome to this episode on Pisces season, which is the final season of our astrological year. So Pisces season runs from February 19th to March 20th this year. The specific dates do change every year, and in my astrology academy, that is where I will be teaching you how to find and track when the planets are doing what. So in this episode, we are going to explore the themes of Pisces season and what we can expect in terms of how the planets are moving. Now, before we start, I do have an exciting announcement to make. The Cosmic Sanctuary membership has officially closed its doors because it will be merging into my astrology academy. So I'm going to be sharing many more updates on that as we make this shift on my social media and in my newsletter. So if you want to stay up to date, the links are in the episode description. Okay, so now we are moving from Aquarius to Pisces season. So Aquarius season was very heady because Aquarius is an air sign. So that is a season where we brainstormed ideas, we problem solved, and now it is time to drop into water, which is Pisces. And this is all about feeling. So in Aquarius season, a lot of that was seeing the bigger picture of things and getting a little too caught up in what ifs and possibilities. But Pisces doesn't think. Pisces knows. Pisces feels. It's that gut feeling that you can't shake. So while Aquarius is all about distributing knowledge as the water bearer, Pisces is here to merge with it. And on that note, we're not actually going to be breaking down Pisces season into specific concrete themes. We're just going to flow into all of it because all of it is interconnected, which is one of the biggest themes of Pisces season. So this is where logic can fade out and intuition really takes the lead. So the question now isn't, okay, what do I know? But it's about, okay, what am I feeling right now? So like I said, Pisces is the final season, the last stop before we start the whole astrological cycle, astrological year all over again. And if Aquarius season was about that bigger picture, that zooming out, Pisces season is where we let go of the overthinking and just be and just exist. And also, speaking of feeling, Pisces season is going to make you feel it, whether you want to or not, and whether you like it or not. So because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, it means that it carries pieces of all the other signs that have come before it. All the energies of those signs exist in Pisces. Now, there is an analogy that my own astrology mentor and I now love to use. And that is that Pisces is kind of like a flavorless ice cream. So stay with me here. So if you imagine all the 12 signs as like a row of ice cream tubs, when, spirit, creator, the universe was kind of assigning energies to these signs, every sign got a flavor, but then they got to Pisces and they kind of like forgot to give Pisces a flavor. So when the Pisces ice cream gets mixed with another flavor of another sign, it very easily merges with that flavor. It is very, very permeable. So there's a lot to do with boundaries this season and feeling overwhelmed with emotion. And so boundaries, grounding, we are going to talk about that because that is really, really important this season. So Pisces energy can feel really deep, really overwhelming, really limitless. It is not bound by reality the same way that other signs are because it dissolves reality, it dissolves those boundaries, it merges everything together just like it does with the ice cream flavors. So it goes between worlds and almost acts as the bridge between our world and the spiritual world. So Pisces season is really here to remind us that we are all connected in ways that we don't always understand and we can't always see or comprehend. But being the final season of the astrological year, this is also a time that is for reflection and closure and kind of wrapping up the past year. So if you imagine like a moment where after you've just had a really emotional or a really deep conversation, you know, when you're maybe sitting alone and you're just kind of staring into empty space and you're just contemplating your life and your existence, like that is the energy of Pisces season. It's got that energy that is nostalgic and introspective and really dreamy. It wants you to feel, to process, not just to think. So this is about taking everything that you've been through over the past 12 months and sitting with it and integrating it. And because Pisces is a mutable water sign, it's not just about thinking or feeling it, it's also about flowing and surrendering. It is about trusting that whatever needs to come up will come up. Trusting that whatever needs to leave will leave. Trusting that whatever comes next, whatever is meant for you, will find you. So this is a season where it's really important to practice surrendering. It's important to stop trying to force things to happen and start flowing, where you let the universe do its thing instead of trying to like control or manage every little detail. And that is easier said than done, because if you have listened to like any of my work, you know that in my chart and in my life and my upbringing, like I have a lot of controlling energy as well. Okay, so it's surrendering is something that I always have to consistently, consciously remind myself to do. So Pisces is ruled by the planet of Neptune, which is the planet of dreams. It's a planet of illusions and spirituality. And this is why the next month might feel like a bit of a haze, like you're kind of floating between reality and fantasy. Now, during this month, the veil between the worlds gets really thin as well, because we are in this kind of final culmination here. So your intuition might be heightened, your dreams, you might find them to be really vivid or even more vivid than usual. And I always say, make sure you keep a dream journal if you are not doing that already. And also your ability to pick up on other people's energy can also be heightened. So this is a really good time to tune in to your gut, your intuition, your higher self, if that is something that you have really been wanting to work on. Because when we talk about intuition, when we talk about gut feelings, we are talking about a feeling, we are talking about a sense. It is not like you can't think your way into the connection. You have to feel into it. You have to practice it. Now, let's kind of talk about the other side of this energy, of Pisces energy, because I always emphasize that there is both a high road and a low road to all the signs, because we are working with archetypal energy here, okay? And all the signs have both their strengths and their weaknesses. They have both a healthy side and a side where their energy expressed not so healthily. So because Pisces is deeply spiritual and intuitive and also artistic and creative, this means that they can also be really permeable, susceptible, and sensitive to other people's emotions and external energy. Like if you have strong Pisces energy in your chart, you might find that even like going to the grocery store, you feel really overwhelmed coming out. It feels like you have, done like a hard day's worth of work, right? Like it really can feel so overwhelming. Pisces energy absorbs energy outside of it like a sponge. It is essentially a sponge, and it can be hard to discern where you end and where someone else begins. So if you're not careful, you can very easily lose yourself when you're with others, which is why this season, regardless of if you have Pisces energy in your chart or not, it is really important to work on grounding to work on your boundaries. And I say that especially with everything that is going on in the world. When we think of what is happening in a global context, it can be really, really easy to get caught up and to just be really overwhelmed and have this feeling of like losing hope almost. And I'm not saying like just completely dissociate from what is happening, because we also cannot bypass reality. We can't bypass what is happening. But what I am saying, and what I do encourage you to do this season, is to find your center, find your energy, and make sure you are coming back to it. Make sure you are centering and grounding yourself in your energy anytime that you do feel this overwhelm come up. So because of this overwhelm, because of this permeability, Pisces energy can also be escapist as hell. Like, it really does not do well, especially when reality is heavy, and as heavy as it is right now. And that's why Pisces energy can get easily lost in daydreams, in fantasies, in avoiding reality, and in the most unhealthy circumstances, in addictions as well. So sometimes the overwhelm of life is too much, and we can't deny that. Sometimes the urge to just check out and dissociate is really strong. And I always say a little escapism isn't bad, but we just have to be mindful of what we are escaping into. So I have very strong Neptunian energy, which rules Pisces in my chart. And so this is something that I really, really have a personal experience with, escapism. So that is always why I am saying that I'm not telling you to like not doom scroll or like to just completely be switched on and embodied. Sometimes we do need to escape when the need calls for it, but just make sure you are able to bring yourself back, and also keep in mind what modes you are using to escape. So we kind of got a little bit low with that, but let's bring it back up. So Pisces season, even though it's all those things that we just talked about, it is also a very healing season if you allow it to be, because Pisces energy, because it's so open and limitless, this is also the energy of unconditional love. It is the energy of compassion, self-forgiveness. Like, this is a season to release any baggage that you don't want to carry into the astrological new year, into Aries season, which is coming next. So this is the time to pause, to stop, and to integrate, and almost be reborn in a way, because we are at the cusp of this ending and a new beginning. So I want to give you some like practical tips with how to work with Pisces energy this season instead of getting lost in it. So firstly, feel your feelings, but don't drown in them. Pisces season is going to bring everything up, and sometimes it might not be something that is logical to you, because feelings are not logical. So they might be feelings that you've tried to suppress, that often resurfaces during this season. But just don't get stuck in kind of wallowing, right? Allow yourself to feel them, because feeling them is going to allow you to actually process and integrate them. Next is grounding. So if you have your own grounding technique, that is perfect, do that. If you don't, it can be as simple as putting your bare feet on the grass, taking some deep breaths, taking a small walk in nature. Like, it doesn't have to be a long, elaborate process, right? Whatever gets you to feel more connected to yourself and grounded, essentially. Finally, allow yourself to rest and recharge. This is your body, your mind, and your soul. They all need a break before Aries season comes in hot, because Aries season carries that get up and go energy. So we are in the pause. We are in this kind of void space, this ending before we begin again. So if you think about it almost like a cocoon, right? Like the caterpillar literally melts away into like nothing, and then a butterfly is formed. So we are in that kind of like gooey nothingness phase. So we really need to honor the pause and the void, and we need to balance all the get up and go kind of hustle energy, if you will, with resting and recharging, because this is a season of surrendering, of trusting, and just allowing yourself to be. So if you can, it is a good idea to take your time with certain projects that you're working on. Like, don't try not to schedule things that are too tight. And I say if you can, if you, like me, have the privilege of doing so, right? So that is essentially the energy of Pisces season. Let's now move on to planetary movements. Now, over the next month, there aren't any really major aspects, so that is planets making connections with each other. It's more just like smaller passing transits that are still important, but they don't have as much of a impact because they last like 3 or 4 days. So let's start off with the new and full moons for this season. So we have the Pisces new moon on the last day of February 28th. Now, for this new moon, we have half the planets in water, and out of those 5 planets, 4 of them are in Pisces. So this is a very, very Pisces heavy new moon, and it's kind of perfect as well because we talked so much about releasing and new beginnings, and the new moon also is like that void. It's when the moon is not visible in the sky, it is the void, and we can pour so much intention into creating like the next chapter that we want to move into. Then on March 14th, we have the Virgo full moon, and this is a total lunar eclipse. So this begins eclipse season and our first eclipse season of this year. And eclipses are a time where the truth comes out. Eclipses are here to move you onto your path or back onto your path. So pay attention to anything that's being revealed to you, anything that is shifting, anything that you can no longer ignore that is coming up for you to now face and deal with. So eclipses, this energy is not just like on the day of the eclipse, it's often starts a week before. Some astrologers even say like 2 weeks before. So basically, after the new moon, you want to kind of start feeling into or just being aware of like, okay, I think this might be like an eclipse thing that is coming up for me. Now, during this total lunar eclipse, this Virgo full moon, the sun is going to be right next to Saturn and also within degree of the conjunction between the North Node and Neptune. So the Neptune and North Node conjunction is still going strong. I talked about it extensively in the Aquarius season episode last month, so you can go back to listen to that. Also, on the last few days of Pisces season, the sun is also going to join this conjunction. So it's like a huge spotlight being cast on it. So again, you can go back to listen to that in the past episode if you would like to. But essentially with Saturn in the mix of this eclipse, this full moon, there is no bypassing. There are no shortcuts. Saturn is here to make you do the work. It is here to get you to really get real with yourself and face yourself. So that is the mid-March. That is going to be when that eclipse happens and when we start our first eclipse season. Now, for other planets, Mars is going direct late February. So Mars has been retrograding in Cancer and it is going to go direct on February 24th. So Cancer is not the most aggressive or direct sign. And being a water sign, whenever we have Mars in a water sign, it can feel like when you try to use your energy, it's almost like you're trying to run through water or like you're trying to move through honey, right? There is a lot of resistance. But with Mars going direct, you might start to feel like you can actually do something about your feelings again, especially because we are talking about Cancer. So in terms of retrogrades, they are a time when we need to be reflecting and really going inwards. So after Mars turns direct, this is also about how do you now start externalizing what you have learned and realized during this retrograde? So this can be how, like, have you really reevaluated what your priorities are? Have you reflected on what your emotional triggers are? What emotional triggers have come up during the retrograde, and what has that taught you about yourself? How have you been expressing and processing your emotions and things like that? Then March 2nd to April 13th, so we are moving into Aries season, Venus is going to be retrograding, and our last Venus retrograde was back in mid-2023. So Venus retrogrades happen about once every year and a half. So they're not that common, not like Mercury retrogrades, which happen 3 times a year. So this Venus retrograde is asking us to basically reflect on our patterns over the past year and a half. And in terms of the areas of life, Venus represents our relationships. It is about our desires, our values, our finances, our approach to our finances, our sense of self-worth. So this retrograde is asking us to reflect on all those things. And being in Pisces and Aries, that's where the retrograde is happening. The big focal point here is reflecting on what and who truly aligns with your authentic self, with your heart and your soul. Then we have another retrograde to kind of finish off Pisces season, if you will. So Mercury retrogrades in Aries from March 15th to April 13th. So on April 13th, I'm moving ahead a little bit here, but Mercury and Venus will turn direct like on the same day, basically. So this is our very first Mercury retrograde of the year out of 3 in total. Now, being in Aries, communication can become really impulsive, and you might be tempted to just say things or blurt things out without really thinking it through. So Aries energy is bold, it is very direct, but it's not always careful. So during this retrograde, really make sure you are thinking twice before you say that thing or before you send that message. And it's also really important to breathe and give yourself some perspective, because things may not be as urgent as they feel for you in the moment. And of course, watch out for all the usual things that happen with Mercury retrograde, like tech issues, travel delays, things like that. So there you go. That is essentially what is happening this Pisces season and what you can expect and watch out for. Now, if you have enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and a review if you feel called to. And I can't believe that this has now completed. We've now completed a whole year of astrological seasons. Moving into the new astrological year, I really want to focus on giving you more episodes that dive into different topics within astrology and even just within spirituality in general. So if there are any topics that you are interested to explore or you're interested in hearing me talk about, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and I am wishing you a lovely rest of your morning, your day, or your evening, wherever you might be.